internet. I'm Chris Reynolds, developer advocate at Pantheon. Today on the live stream, we are going to be talking about the robot apocalypse and how we should all accept that chatbots are going to take over the world. Actually, I've got my friend Gary Kovar on, and besides being one of the engineers that helped make the NASA.gov site reboot happen, he's also done a couple courses on LinkedIn Learning about AI-assisted development. And since everyone has been talking about vibe coding for the last couple months, I decided that I needed to jump on the bandwagon too. And who better to talk about AI than someone who's literally been teaching classes about it? I've known Gary for probably close to 10 years, but for the viewers at home, please tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, Gary.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me here today. I am a software developer. Yeah, Chris, like you said, we've known each other for nearly a decade. My first dev job was actually reporting to you as a software developer many moons ago. In the WordPress space, most of that time dabbling with many things outside of it. I've done agency work, I've done product work. I'm currently at Lone Rock Point, and we do WordPress for civic sites. So part of that was, as you mentioned, the NASA site. Yeah. And AI specifically. So I have two courses live on LinkedIn Learning right now, both around AI-aided refactoring and AI-aided test-driven development. In both cases, mostly leaning on GitHub Copilot and walking through how to really leverage Copilot to get the best, to make good codes. And then I was out in Carpinteria, California last week at the beautiful LinkedIn campus recording two new AI courses. One is one could actually be called like a vibe coding course, and I didn't know it because when I pitched the course, vibe coding wasn't a thing.
There wasn't a name for it. Yeah.
Yeah, we were just it was
vibing.
Yeah. And that course is on taking like wireframes and converting it into like Tailwind CSS. So if you've worked with me, you know that front end is not where I'm good. So it would make sense that I would lean heavily into vibe coding. CSS, especially Tailwind. Tailwind is great with AI because it is AI being generative and predictive based on the information it has. It can make some pretty solid guesses at Tailwind based on information in the system. And the other course was on creating like a Laravel API. REST APIs are still a thing.
I hear that.
At least for developer humans to use. Yeah, and Laravel's a great platform if you're creating an API, and AI is really helpful for doing things like writing documentation, which apparently is appreciated by people using the API. So there's all that.
What got you started looking at AI from a development perspective, and what are your takeaways from having done sort of quasi-extensive research and experimentation in the subject?
Yeah, Quasi is doing a lot of work there. I didn't know I was supposed to do research for this thing. I thought we were vibing, Chris. Come on, man. Yeah. So
well, I mean, I've done the courses. I've done the course things too, and I know that like when I was making courses on Pluralsight, I had to like figure out like, okay, how do I actually talk intelligently about the subject that I'm going to be teaching in class on? And a lot of times that meant reading a lot of documentation or reading a book about the thing, or a chapter in a book about the thing, and then talking about the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Like doing the thing. Let me start by answering that. Just a little bit of my experience working with AI just last week, and then I'll go back to how I made AI sort of part of my workflow. So in prep for the courses, I was doing things like, well, here's a wireframe, and I can't upload an image into Copilot as recently as Copilot. If you aren't familiar, GitHub Copilot has there's a free plan now, which is great. Started out free.
Yep.
It was like $100 a year for a while. Now it's free again. You can pay more for other stuff if you find that it really helps you. It's worth paying for. But I think even the free plan is pretty generous. So for a long time, it was really just doing like predictive autocomplete in your IDE, which was cool. And it's slowly grown more and more, and now it can do like agent mode where you can kind of refine and edit and make things happen. So anyway, preparing for this course, I had a wireframe, and so in ChatGPT, nope, in Copilot, I dropped the wireframe in, and I said, "Hey, generate the markup for this, or tell me about the whatever the question was, whatever the prompt was." And so in prep for the course, Copilot was like, "That's not a thing I do." Okay, so I would hop over to ChatGPT using the same model, right? Whatever model, I think it was 3.5 or whatever. I don't remember. A few months back. And so ChatGPT generated the markup. Well, as I sat down in the studio this last week, I did that in Copilot, and expecting it to say I can't do that in Copilot, was like, yeah, sure, here you go. So the process of working with AI, from a studio perspective, is like working with a toddler a little bit. It was things that it previously couldn't do. It knew how to do, or had learned in the time. Terrible language. We use language about AI
right.
as though it's a human, but like the
Yes.
features had evolved. Is a better way of thinking about it. Going way back though, so the early Copilot started out with a technical preview, and at the time I was working. I'm pretty sure I was working at Craftspeak. Craftspeak, we did websites for breweries and cideries and that kind of stuff, and so there was a WooCommerce side. Shout out to Pantheon, like huge multi-site, couple hundred breweries.
Yes.
That it was great. I mean, like we had for people that are excited about this kind of stuff, we had some beer drop sales that happened on Pantheon that that Shopify couldn't handle the volume, and we did it on Pantheon and WooCommerce and WordPress, which are, of course, everyone here knows are archaic and slow and unable to scale, except when they do. So very cool. And anyway, I picked up the technical preview way back then with Copilot, and I was working in like a WordPress projects mostly. We had a couple repos that were other frameworks, other languages, but Copilot wasn't great in WordPress because WordPress, the virtue of the hook system is everything's permissive. There's not really strong standards enforced. So, I've seen different architectures at different places I've worked, and real extreme OOP to prefix your functions so we don't have function conflicts, everything in between, and that is not that's not super useful for AI to understand and identify patterns in, right? Even so, to do things like roll out like a Circle CI YAML file, or although YAML files are also terrible with AI because indentation. So, but even figuring out like what's how do I write this? How do I spin up this bash command to make this happen? That kind of stuff. It was pretty useful for, and I found that it slowly became a default part of my workflow. And then when they went to the point where they were going to charge for it, I was like, I don't know that this is something I'm willing to pay for. But also, I've gotten a little lazy. Like, I don't know if you've had this experience, but like in WordPress,
no, never.
right?
I've never been lazy.
We work with post meta all the time, and I cannot type the word meta. I always write post meet. So get post meet.
Yep. I'm familiar with Postmeet.
Yep. So the right thing to do is I should have created an MU plugin that I ship with all my projects that just maps the post meet plugins to post meta. I'm sorry, post meet functions to post meta plugins. But instead, I paid Copilot to autocomplete and fix it for me instead. Yeah. What was your original question? Did I answer it? I don't even know
something about how did you get involved in using AI for development? I think that you probably, in a roundabout way, got there in the end.
And I do also want to say that, working with LinkedIn Learning is fantastic. There is, so LinkedIn Learning, of course, LinkedIn owned by Microsoft, as is GitHub, and if you haven't heard of Microsoft, they're like this enormous corporation, and they're really smart, right? They're very data driven. They're not doing things, by feel or by gut. They are not Vibe running Microsoft. Vibe, what would you do? I don't know. They're not. Microsoft is not a Vibe company. Um,
I mean, you say that now.
yeah, give it a week. And so what I say about it is like, they're identifying that obviously much of the conversation in on LinkedIn is happening around AI. They're seeing a lot of search in the LinkedIn Learning platform for AI related content, and so there's a hunger for that. So talking with um, content manager over there about courses, um, she was very very encouraging on anything AI related, especially with specific frameworks because that's where they're seeing a lot of the search traffic,
Hmm.
and it's just data driving that right now. There's also recognition that there are developers that are um, you know uh, I don't want to say ignoring AI. No one's ignoring AI. Some people are ignoring AI. Few people are ignoring AI, but people are not. Some developers are not leveraging AI. There's like I'm doing fine without it or what have you. And so there's the all developers will be replaced with AI next week type folks. I'm definitely not in that camp. Um, then there's the folks that I don't need AI. I don't think we're there anymore. I think we're at a point where if you're a developer, like AI should be something you have in your toolkit, and maybe not now, maybe in a while, but um, as many of us as developers kind of mature in our career, we add tools to the tool belt to write code faster or cleaner or better. Things like automated testing or moving to a true IDE that understands your code base. So you can jump to definitions or it'll hint at um, property types or that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Xdebug, whatever the process is. So step debugging, wherever that is in the workflow, right? AI is one of those things that's just gonna be, I think, is becoming part of the tool belt.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that transitions nicely into on these live streams. You like to demo a thing or like show a thing, probably running on Pantheon, but to talk about the subject in question. And I think you've
Sure.
got perhaps some stuff prepared that we can get into a little bit. And before or as you're maybe setting it up, maybe tell me what you've got, what we're looking at, or what we're going to be looking at.
Okay. At the moment, we're looking at nothing. So,
Well,
so
yes, I
in
know
in the
that,
true in the
Gary.
true process of vibe coding, like we're gonna try and create this plugin totally on the fly in the next whatever 20, 30 minutes, whatever time we have here. Um, I did this yesterday and it worked, but like I said earlier, working with AI is like working with a toddler. So we'll just see what happens. I was thinking through. You remember like the old days of the internet when you would log on and you had to drop your own WinSock DLL in so you could use AOL and add other like use other applications through your connection.
I
Um,
never used AOL, so no, I have no idea how
really,
that process works.
I mean, I had like a
I that's not
box
that's
of
not true. My
I,
parents used AOL, and I worked for MSN, so yeah, that it's not that much different.
so to use ICQ, you had to
Right.
anyway. But you and I have talked about in the past, and it's actually this morning on an all hands meeting at work. Somebody was reminiscing about the old internet, and um, I was thinking it would be cool to have a
Web
little plug-in.
1.0.
Yeah, if that. It was like beta. The internet was in beta. It was great. Um, so I was thinking it'd be cool to have like a chat messenger in WordPress, so logged in users can just see in the corner and chat with each other. And so I did this yesterday. I asked AI to build it in the true vibe coding fashion. I totally did no code review and it worked yesterday. So I still have that branch saved in case this crashes and burns, and we should review that code. So let's do this in edit mode and just have it go ahead and write some code for us.
Sure, and you can step through sort of your process.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I want a
I've
WordPress
got
plugin.
the yep.
I want it to add a chat box to the lower right hand corner for logged in users. Oh, well, I didn't mean to hit enter. We'll see where we go from here. I wonder what kind of chat box it'll build.
Copilot's going to say, great, that sounds like a fun idea.
Yeah, it may.
What do you want me for?
Well, we're in edit mode. It's definitely going to write some code. What that code does.
Yeah, that's true.
It's going to write some code.
Have you used things other than Copilot, or have you been mostly focused on Copilot because that's kind of the directive you've gotten from LinkedIn and from above on high from Microsoft to sort of focus on that thing?
Yeah. So Copilot's easy. So that's what I've
easy too, and there's other things that are also easy.
Yeah. So I'm really stuck with PHP Storm.
That's fair.
I'll say that. So my options are a little limited, although JetBrains has now rolled out their own AI. Let's jump over and see what this does. All right, plugins. Look at that. So it seems I can't chat with myself. All right. I think unfortunately it probably has some context from yesterday. You know what I'll do? I'll create another user here, and I'll open another browser and just try and chat. Oh, I think actually I may have a user from yesterday.
Did it do that without making a an actual plugin?
No, there's a plugin.
Oh, there's a plugin. This is Chatbox. Yeah.
So it's Chatbox. I said we're not going to.
Did it activate it for you too? Like. That was already active when you went to the plugins page.
Because I hadn't loaded my local version since I tried this yesterday, so it named it the same thing. Had I reloaded it, would have been like, hey, this is this plugin's not here. What's I gonna do? Oh, I was gonna open Safari. And who is that user? Other Gary.
Probably Gary.
Well, I have Gary and other Gary.
Okay.
So.
So for the 12 or so people watching, among other things that Gary and I have done is we did a podcast for a really long time called Binary Jazz with another friend of ours, Allison. I'm Jazz Sequence on the internet. Gary is Binary Gary on the internet. So Binary Jazz was sort of mashing those two things together. And so I was about to sort of like reference that like the Dead Air is just great internet content, which is very similar to some of the podcast episodes that you might if you go back through the Binary Jazz library. But.
Well, it was probably a bad idea to do this a week after I was in studio because Dead Air is fine in studio because the editors fixed that.
Because they just
I'm like programmed just for Dead Air right now. Like I'm comfortable with it. If it bothers you, right? Sorry. So
it's my job to fill the dead air.
Yeah. You're doing great, Chris. Keep it up.
Great.
So it doesn't work. I can see
great. It doesn't work.
In. So yeah, this is how we roll with vibe coding. When I click on a user, I can't seem to send a message to them. That's like...
So it sounds like, or it looks like, what you're doing is just sort of using conversational language to basically talk to the AI as if it's a human and that you expect it to do a thing. I know a lot of people, even people that are doing vibe coding stuff, vibe coding adjacent things, do a lot more with like the prompt engineering of it, where they like give it more context about what their intent is before they actually even send the first prompt. And maybe that was where you were going, but you hit enter before you had a chance to do that.
Kind of. I think prompt engineering. So prompt engineering was like huge in 23, early 24, right? This idea that if I can craft the perfect prompt, right? I can get this thing to go through. I think that there's two issues there. First is, we're working with systems that are being trained by what we do. So, I think that there is, in using AI, there is always like an affirmation or confirmation bias. AI is biased towards doing stuff and being agreeable. So So I think that's one part. I think the second part is if from a developer perspective specifically, if you're working with AI and you say, "Oh, do this thing," and it writes all this code. In this case, like what do we have here? We've got 110 lines of PHP. We've got 60 lines of JS and 60 lines of CSS. Um, like my gut when something doesn't work is I want to jump in and fix it. I want a bug fix. And so
Mm-hmm.
in my normal day-to-day operation, like I wouldn't be doing this. I don't like vibe coding for me starts like do this thing, and then when it does it and it's not, I'm testing it. It's a dance. It's like a continued refinement, and then I get this part working, and then come back to AI and ask for this next thing, and off you go. Um, Whereas in the true interest of trying vibe coding here, this is where we're going to see what happens. Again, I'm accepting all. Let's just see what happens. Okay, so if I click on other Gary, can I send a message? No. No. Okay. When I click on another user and type a message, I cannot. And I am obviously like fixing typos and stuff because it bothers me. Copilot doesn't care. Like if I had the word
AIs don't
message
care about
there
typos.
typed wrong, like it would just figure it out.
Yeah.
To that end, I several weeks ago had AI helping me with configuring Tailwind on an existing Laravel project, and it just wouldn't load. Like it wasn't like it. I don't know. I was having trouble with it. I couldn't get it to build. And I'm like beating my head against the wall, and so I'm asking for help, and like come on, like this is something simple. I'm skimming
Because you made a
through. It seems to
typo.
work.
You're just
Yeah,
posting it again.
so I called the file tailwing and config instead of
Oh yeah.
tailwind,
Yep. Yep.
and one would think that that's somewhat obvious that Copilot would be like, "Hey, your file's named incorrectly," but it kept saying, "You don't have this file," and I'm like, "I'm clearly looking at the file right here," and perhaps it was dirty glasses or something, and I missed the. Okay, let's see what happens now.
Well, there's a console error right now.
Well, it's just it can't find the favicon.
Okay.
That's all. I don't actually feel like it's selecting the user either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the moral
Cool.
of what I'm hearing you say, and I also agree with this, is that basically there still needs to be a human at the wheel because AI should not be used unattended.
Yeah, I mean, there's fun demos and this isn't one of them, but there's fun demos of vibe coding online, right?
It's kind of fun.
We're
me.
gonna look at code for a minute and take a break from this, because it's frustrating me. But no, there's fun demos of people like iteratively creating a thing, right? And of course, context is always different. So they're doing it in the context of maybe standing up a calculator or Python app that does whatever, or earlier I referenced that AI works really well in these very opinionated type frameworks. Laravel and Symfony being two options that it sort of knows the rules of the road, and it's going to generate things pretty well. There are some quirks like in Laravel, convention is if you create a migration, which is a PHP file that creates a table. Migration, the language is a little confusing if you're used to WordPress. It means creating the table versus moving data. If you create the migration in Laravel using AI, like it always assumes that you're working in the convention is to name the file with the year, month, date, and then timestamp. And it will just assume it's the 0th day of the 0th month of the year 2023 at the 0th hour for all migrations rather than getting the current time, which would be generated if you used the Laravel command to create the migration. So there's some quirks, but outside of those quirks, it does work fairly well. All right, Copilot, I'm hiding you for a moment. So, just reviewing this plugin, I already have concerns that there's no namespacing here, there's no prefixing, so these functions are ripe for collision.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems, this seems legit enough, though, right? for enqueuing scripts, get users. Oh, I also like, we're in the year 2025, and it's not creating a REST endpoint. It's just using admin Ajax for this.
Oh yeah, that's yeah.
That's it's the nature of the training data, right? It's chewing on a bunch of existing stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have had this conversation before about just sort of the nature of the data upon which large language models are trained, which is predominantly like the internet, like feed a robot the entire internet, and this is kind of what it comes up with. And a lot of the internet is kind of garbage. So, I
Yes.
mean, so
Well,
garbage in, garbage out. Like you kind of there's a level of
yeah.
expectation setting that you kind of need to just kind of go into it with.
And what do you think is going to happen as we see? I think a few things we can expect a few things right now, right? So as vibe coding becomes more common, and we see more and more of people using AI to generate code, we're going to see, like, it's a terrible metric, but it's a metric of some sort that we can look at. Lines of code per year or per month or whatever. I think we have to
Oh
expect it's going to
God.
increase, even though we're
Oh
using
no.
languages now that are, have many more helper functions and are more concise than they have in years past, and things have
Mm,
matured. So there's more helper packages that we can rely on. Even with that, I expect that we're going to see lines of code just increase. When we see these lines of code increase, and that data then becomes training data, like, you know, I
yeah, I mean, at a certain point, the AI is eating its own uh, refuse.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's eating the code that it's writing, and it becomes just a sort of a weird sort of. I'm trying to avoid really gross metaphors, and I just keep coming back to the same gross metaphors. So I'm just not gonna say any
It's a
of them.
snake eating its tail. Let's go with
There
that.
we go.
Yeah,
That's a much better metaphor.
yeah, yeah. We could talk about snakes for a little while, but we
Yeah.
probably shouldn't.
Okay.
Uh, um, the other thing that I think uh, I don't want to be dismissive of the people that are working on AI. Like, there's insanely smart people working on AI who are obviously aware of this. Like, we didn't just discover this idea that, oh my gosh, it's gonna choke on itself, right?
Hmm.
So to that end, like, there are things in play that will deal with that. However, um, there's going to need to be a lot of code sorted through and fixed, and maybe just wholesale thrown out and replaced with, maybe a little more human intercessed code rather than just completely AI generated as time goes on.
So you have a course on AI assisted testing.
Oh
I
yeah,
wonder, like, you know, bringing it back to what we have on the screen right now, and
yeah,
I've had the thought. I don't know that I've actually tried building it, but I've had the thought of like using some sort of AI in a test driven development kind of workflow where like the theory is AI writes the tests to for the thing that I want to build, and then uses the tests to validate the code that needs to be written to do, like, because the whole idea of test driven development, right, is you write the test first. The test is going to fail, then you write the function to make the test succeed, and then you build your application or your plugin or whatever based on that sort of workflow. And I have had a thought like, well, if we know that AIs can write tests, and we know that they can maybe interpret a high level architecture of the thing that I want to make, then perhaps we can have the AI write the failing tests and then go from there to write the code that would make the
yeah,
tests pass.
yeah. So my course digs into that a bit. As an aside, I checked out the branch that's working, and we'll hop in there in a second, and do a comparison as far as what's different. But in that course, there's two ways to think about testing. Um, First, true TDD, right? You write to your point, you write the failing test, and then you make the test pass. And in whatever the TDD book is, the suggestion is, like, hard code the response so that the test passes, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
yeah. So, like, if you're testing, like, is this thing true? always return true from the function. Like that's how you make the
Mhm.
first test pass, and then you keep going on. And the idea is that you leave the code in a known functional state at the end of each session. I can't think of the last time that I opened a pull request that the code was like in a non-functional state with or without tests. So that TDD approach, really pragmatic. I don't think, I just don't think very successful, especially in the web world. Where we're not.
Mhm.
It's not easy to write, WordPress code that's truly unit testable. You're going to have integration tests. You're going to
Yeah.
have to mock things. You're going to have
Yep.
to isolate things. Like it's and that's fine. I mean that's not a knock on the system. That's just reality. So to say all that to say, I've gone both ways with AI and testing. One is I will write the test and have AI implement it to make it pass. One of the benefits there is I feel like you get better test coverage because you start writing these test cases where you go, oh well, in this circumstance it should do this, in this circumstance it should do
Mhm.
this. Whether
And
that's
then
like
you're mocking out the intention of the function or whatever by writing the tests that describe the way that it should work.
and the tests then become like documentation of business logic.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a cop out because it's not like you're going to print the tests and hand it to like a new member of the team and say, "Hey, here's how the thing works." However, it's the last defense against undocumented stuff is the
Right.
test.
Yeah.
Like, why does it work this way? Well, the test says it works this way because of this. Okay, whatever,
Yeah.
that's fine. So that's one way is starting with the test. I've also gone the other way where I'll write a few small functions and I'll highlight and say generate tests for this. And by and large, both are more successful than not writing tests. In this most recent course I was recording, I talked about a PHP unit specifically. We can set up coverage with Xdebug, and you can look at test coverage. So I have a video, and they're talking about like what's the appropriate amount of test coverage, and the answer is it's definitely not 100. That seems just punitive. So if you have a dev team you totally dislike, make sure they get 100% test coverage. Except coverage is such a misnomer. So in the example I use in there is there's a middleware that checks if a user is validated. And so I run this test at an endpoint and it shows there's 30% test coverage, but 100% coverage in this middleware, yet I never wrote tests in the middleware because PHP unit Xdebug coverage are just looking like, was this code executed? And if it was executed and the test pass, apparently it was tested. Which, if we think about that in the context of WordPress, right? How many things are bootstrapped within WordPress from the beginning of the request to the response that would show having test coverage that aren't actually tested? Yeah. So there's this concept of mutation testing, which I love. When we talk about gross things, mutation testing to me just sounds cool. Like I want mutation testing. So Pest PHP is a cool test framework that expands from what PHP unit's doing. By default, it has mutation testing baked in. But there's a composer package if you're using PHP unit called, you know what? I don't know. Google mutation testing PHP. I can't remember what it's called. That's actually what I used last week because I was using PHP unit. And the language it uses is escaped mutant. And so when it runs the test, what it literally does is if it comes to a conditional that has, one or two, just to say one path. So it's a Boolean conditional. It'll change the result. And if your tests don't now fail, that's indication of, I love this language, an escaped mutant. And so,
cool. Yeah. Someone breaking out of Professor X's school for what's it? Gifted young people or whatever his school is. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't make the cut. I didn't get in. But so like if you really wanted to make sure adequate test coverage, forget I said that word. If you wanted to understand your test coverage, mutation testing would be really cool. And if you were chasing, major test coverage in something like this plugin, right? You just drive yourself batty. That being said, a test is better than no tests, and that always continues onward. So getting things under tests is the first step. Mutation testing, way in
Yeah.
the future. All right, so back to this. Like, let's take a
Yes.
look at how this works when it does work. Okay, so different color box. That's neat. Oh, look at that. It's got my conversation from yesterday still, so that's sweet.
So it stored it somewhere. Maybe, yeah, I wonder where
Let's
it
find
stored
out
it.
where in a second. Yeah, I'm gonna jump over to Safari and oh wow, and there's the message. Sweet. So yeah, it's sort of working. Conceptually, like, not really an earth-shattering thing. A feature that I would really enjoy having, and maybe something that's worth fully baking. I don't know. Um, it
You,
creates this table called chat messages. So that's kind of cool.
okay,
Um,
so that's where it's being stored.
yeah.
Yeah.
My immediate reaction seeing that too, though, is I've tested it with 2 users. I wonder what happens if there's a third user in the system, and how that would work. We looked at yesterday when I was noodling on this. There is where is the function? Here it is. So poll messages, just every 5 seconds. It just
Hmm.
throws that admin Ajax. Yeah, there it is. What's
Yeah,
the
so if you really
response
wanted to
like?
spam your server, you could do that every second.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, and it's not. This is sweet. Yeah. Um, I mean, imagine if you've had like a
So
long
do you
conversation with
know?
someone, you're passing back and forth. Like this is not. This is. Would you have built this way? I wouldn't build this way. Go ahead. Sorry, you were gonna say something
Probably
else.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I probably have gotten in trouble for building things very similarly in this way.
Yeah.
Um, no, I was gonna ask uh, if you know or if you have I don't know if in your history or if you can access it or something, the difference between the prompt that you gave for this version and the prompt that you gave today. Do you have that, or do you know
No, I
what
have
you
no
told
idea.
it yesterday? Yeah, of
I
course.
started with a much more thorough message. I didn't hit enter in the middle.
Yeah.
But it was not significantly different. I mean, it was pretty similar, and I could kind of walk through what it did initially. So what we were seeing there, where it was failing to send messages, that definitely happened yesterday. Um, I explained the situation, and it it fixed it. I don't know what
Hmm.
this is. I guess this is space for other people that are logged in. I don't know, but it also didn't have the ability to scroll for a while. So as you added more messages, this just got taller and taller until you couldn't see the users anymore. And
Oh yeah,
so there's some it makes some weird decisions that as a developer you'd never be like, oh, of course
for
this
sure.
div should just grow in height forever. Like that's obvious. But
Yeah.
that's by virtue of just patterns it's
So
looking
we do
at.
have a question in the chat from Will from Canopy Studios. I believe Canopy, if I'm not mistaken, Will, you can maybe correct me, but I believe you mostly work on Drupal stuff. And that sort of sets the stage for this question in particular, which is what kind of integration does WordPress have with AI, like a chatbot to discuss content on the website or features that allow you to build custom post types. Um, I recognize this context because I know from my own playing with the AI recipe in Drupal CMS that you can literally do those things with that AI recipe in Drupal. I don't know that such a chatbot exists for WordPress. The and I don't know that anybody's built it. I don't know that I've seen it. I don't know, and I do know that when Automatic acquired WPAI, I think was the company name,
Mm-hmm.
like last year or late last year. Um, one of the thoughts I had was like, oh, this is obviously they're going to be starting building. And then the thing that came out like maybe a month or so ago was more similar to uh, perhaps the installation process of Drupal CMS, where like you can pick the things that define how the Drupal CMS site is set up, in the context of basically walking through a chatbot to say, I want to build this type of site, and then the chatbot says, oh, okay, here's how you would set this up, and it gives you the site, and then once you have the site, it's like, okay, you're done, and that the chatbot is hands off. Um, that's the only thing that I'm aware of that really exists in the broader word. Where there might be like individual plugins and things that are doing some cool and interesting things. I've also seen lots of like spitting out content or generating, images and like the normal stuff that you have seen AI do for the past 5 years, but nothing to the level of um, that sort of integration.
Yeah, I'll chime in and say WordPress directly. Like I'm not aware of anything. Doesn't mean that there's not work being done there. I'm just not plugged in enough to know or paying attention enough to know. There's a lot of folks trying different ideas, both from using AI to build plugins to leveraging AI for content creation, et cetera, et cetera. I did I won't call it a deep dive. I did a shallow dive recently on um, thinking through search. So WordPress search it's not the best, and a lot of times you'll find that hosts will have um, some kind of like document store for search instead,
Yeah,
Elasticsearch or something similar
yeah.
for better search results. Um, but I did I sort of wrote architecture for like let's take content, let's turn it into vectors, and then figure out how we can take search from the user, um, convert that to vectors, find appropriate documents, pass that as context back, and then write an AI generated response with links and sourcing. Um, yeah, I think we're going to see things like that take place. I've even spoken with clients recently who are, they're going, well, AI is taking over search, so we need AI on our site somehow, and that's kind of the thinking is that,
Hmm.
AI aided search is where things are headed. Um, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where that comes in the next few months. I think we're going to see a lot of folks, names we know, names we don't know, implement things of that nature to some success and sometimes to less success.
Yeah.
The fun part was when I pulled up a spreadsheet, like, well, okay, great, I can theoretically do this. What would this cost using OpenAI's API, right? Um, and the just ballparking, a few thousand searches a month. The difference, like using different models, was everywhere from like under $5 a month to $800 a month. Like
Right.
it was just such a dart throw for all the ways to implement it. So definitely some work to do there to figure out um,
Yeah.
that thing. I will say too that for the purposes of testing, I wasn't going to use OpenAI at all. I was playing with um, Olama, right, and running a
Hmm.
model locally, which also not something that I would ever do outside of my own machine. And honestly, I only like doing it on my own machine because it's kind of funny to watch the um, like the GPU like graph like peak for the 15
Hmm.
seconds for an answer and then drop back down to doing nothing as I render markup on my screen and don't use the GPU at all.
Felix, or no, Weston, sorry. I was looking at the plugin page. Weston points out there's an AI services plugin from Felix Arntz. I posted the link from the Pantheon handle. I'm looking at the plugin page. Looks like it might be a thing. I was not aware of that. That's definitely a thing that that I will check out after this live stream. Um, what else you got for me, Gary?
We didn't talk about it, but and we're not going to. But
Great. Okay, let's not.
you
Let's just not.
I think there is a part too, like where I just defaulted to GPT 4.0, right? Like
Sure.
if you're like you should play around with models.
Yeah.
I guess
It
is
makes a
where it
big
is.
difference.
It absolutely can. And Claude, I think that's Anthropic, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean I've been totally thrilled with Claude in the past.
Yep.
So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I because Pantheon uses GCP for everything in our architecture and whatever. We have recently sort of like gotten the go ahead to use Gemini for like code related AI kind of tasks, and so
Mm,
I have been playing. That's one of the things that I've been doing a lot or playing with a little bit is I've been using VS Code extension called Klein, which is very similar to Copilot. And probably I need to just get back to Cursor and set that up. But I have a Google Gemini API key that I've been using for that stuff, and and to the point of changing models, I went to it with some. I don't even remember what the question was, but as a developer, like as a programming question, build me this type of thing, and it spun its wheels on Flash 2.0, which a month or two ago I heard was just amazing, super fast, super accurate, whatever, and it just was not. It was just churning out garbage. And then I changed the model to 2.5 experimental, whatever, and immediately it started giving me better code that actually worked. So like to the point of like check the model, like the model actually does matter quite a bit. It matters where it's coming from. And honestly, like I'm still not super sold on Gemini in itself over other things in comparison. And I've bounced back and forth. I use Warp for my terminal. That has built-in integrations with like a US-based DeepSeek and a Claude and different things, and I think it contextually changes what AI it's using based on the request that you're doing in like if you're asking it a question, it sort of figures out which thing would be better to use as a response. So I really don't know what it's doing under the hood, other than that I know that it can do a lot of different things under the hood. So yeah, I do agree that playing with different models, if you're going to go in down the rabbit hole at all, is a rabbit hole worth getting into.
I want to throw a couple things out there too. So you're talking about VS Code integration. I think one of the things that's kept me connected to Copilot is that LinkedIn, as part of this Microsoft thing, like they're pushing GitHub services. So one of those is Code Spaces. So Code Spaces is VS Code in your browser. It's great for those projects that you're going to like open a pull request on and you don't want to set up like a local instance. Fantastic for that. And so Copilot works great in there. The other thing that we didn't talk about that's worth flagging is that the GitHub CLI tool has Copilot integration as well, and it is very aware that if you are using that, you're probably willing to try dangerous things in your terminal, so it warns you. But I mean, that's a cool tool that saved me a few times where I'm like, oh god, how do I find this thing? And I can ask, and it'll come up with a command that's close enough. Yeah. I think the last thing I wanted to throw out there too. Do you have any other questions before I throw out the last thing?
No, you can throw out the last thing if you want.
Last thing. The last thing,
or just the last thing. I don't know. Whichever last.
Oh, I thought
thing
I thought the previous thing was the last thing, so this would have to be the second.
Okay, so this would be at the last thing. Okay,
sure.
Got it.
I do developer coaching, and so one of the things I'm seeing is a lot of conversation about AI. If it's something that you're really interested in, check out binarygary.com and hit me up. Let's grab a session and chat AI and figure out how it can integrate with what you're doing. If you're not there, or if you're there and you're struggling, and like whatever, let's chat.
Yeah, and while we're on the subject, you said you've got a couple courses that you just recorded at the LinkedIn Studios last week. Do you have any idea when those things are going to drop?
August.
Spoilers?
Yeah, August-ish. Okay. Yeah. Watch my LinkedIn. I've got some cool promo videos coming for those. It was great. They were like, "Hey, you want to record promo videos?" Like, yes, because I can't get Copilot to do it for me, so I should probably do it. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, follow me on LinkedIn or whatever the language is on LinkedIn. Join me. Dine with me. Dine with me. Yeah. Dine with me on LinkedIn.
I'm sure that's what it is. Yeah.
It must be. Yeah. Yeah,
surely. Any other places on the internet that you frequent these days that people can find you?
Oh, what a good question. I don't know.
I'm just doing the thing that you're supposed to do as like a podcast host or whatever.
BinaryGary.com.
Like and subscribe, I guess.
BinaryGary.com is find out about me and contact me if you want to. LinkedIn. I do love seeing what people build. So like seriously, I say it in almost all my courses on LinkedIn, and I do mean it. Like if you're building something cool, like and you don't know you don't like do the self-promotion thing, like ping me. I'll look at it. I'll be excited for you. Like seriously, like if that's the one thing I can bring to the internet that's nice, like yeah,
That's
Pull me
actually
in.
pretty fair. Like I said, we have a podcast. We don't record anymore so much. But binaryjazz.com. If you have an interest in going through like 6 years worth of just random stuff on the internet, but one of the random things that we built on the internet that's still on the internet is an API called the Genrenator,
Mm.
which I think was much like the Binary Jazz podcast in the first place was started out as a joke. I think the Genrenator started out as a joke, and then we decided to just make that thing. So the Genrenator will come up with random genres, and I got really into the weeds of like how to construct the naming of different random genres so that it would sound accurate. And to your point of people randomly emailing you about cool stuff they built, I have gotten emails about cool things that people have built with the Genrenator, and I myself am using and have used the Genrenator in like testing and like to like create like fake theme names or test theme names. I've used it to generate like site names. So this adds nothing to the AI conversation. It's just weird stuff on the internet, which I hope that we continue to have weird things on the internet, even with AI is writing all of our code in I don't know, cleaner way. It's not really cleaner. I don't know
No,
I don't know what
no,
the
it's not
adjective is.
cleaner. It's
Yeah,
not
I don't know
cleaner.
what the adjective
It's
that
just
I'm trying
more
to
of
go
it.
for is. Yeah,
Just
more,
more of it.
more
Just more
lines.
internet. Yeah, yeah.
That's
Extra
the
internet.
theme. Yeah.
Yeah. Go forth and build weird stuff.
Yes. Go
That's
forth and build weird stuff. Vibe code your way. But again, I think the moral is at least as of today, as of this day in May of 2025, you still need humans driving the AI machines.
yes.
Would you agree, Gary? Yeah.
I absolutely would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, Gary. Obviously, like we can chat all day, so we won't subject the viewers to that. But it was great having you on, and look for Gary's new LinkedIn courses. And thanks for joining people in here in the chat and future humans watching the stream in the future, and we're in the
And
past.
AI bots that are ingesting
And
this for
AI
training
robots
purposes.
that are
Yeah.
scraping this
This was a
for.
ton of fun, Chris. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.